You've spent your whole life believing you're alive, breathing, thinking, making choices. But what if I told you something that very few dare to consider? What if you're actually already dead, and what you're experiencing right now is simply your consciousness drifting across infinite versions of reality? Shocking, absolutely. And yet, this is exactly what some of the world's leading scientists are starting to suggest. While most people live terrified of death, clinging to every second, a growing body of research hints that life after death may not be a future event, might be your current state. Your spirit could be slipping between countless realities every time you make a choice, escaping outcomes where you didn't survive, crafting a seamless illusion of continuity. The scariest part, the evidence is hiding in plain sight, and that's exactly why you need to stay with me. Because what we're about to explore can change the way you live and die forever. If these theories resonate with you, and you're ready to challenge everything you thought you knew, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is your gateway into the truths they don't want you to question, because once you see what's really happening, there's no unseeing it. You know that almost universal fear we have of the end, that idea that when you close your eyes for the last time, everything will simply fade away. What few people stop to consider is that this may not be the case. Some scientists have proposed that death is not the game over that most people imagine. What if, in fact, we're just going through a door, changing scenery while the spirit continues its journey? Imagine the scene, a river flowing peacefully. At certain points, it splits into branches, forks, new paths. Now think of our afterlife as something similar. The current continues, but the water follows different paths. What about our consciousness? Perhaps, like an attentive navigator, it continues to flow through these multiple streams, even when the physical body seems to have been left behind. After all, who can say for sure that we aren't all, in a way, dead in some realities, while we continue in others? The most fascinating thing is that this theory doesn't just come from mystics or old spiritual tales. No, my friend, we're talking about renowned physicists, respected scientists who dare to challenge the comfortable view of the absolute end. And the question is, if death is not the end, then what are we? What is the spirit that passes through these layers of existence? And when we start to take this seriously, the next discoveries become even more intriguing. Have you ever wondered what really happens every time you make a decision? Not just the big ones, changing careers, ending a relationship, but even the tiniest, like choosing coffee over tea this morning. According to scientist Hugh Everett's Many Worlds interpretation, every single choice splits reality into parallel versions. In one, you picked coffee. In another, you picked tea. And in countless others, you chose things you can't even imagine now. Here's where it gets wild. What if your spirit doesn't just stay stuck in one version? What if, unconsciously, it can slip, drift, or jump between these different branches? That would mean you're constantly navigating a cosmic web of possibilities. Think about it. The version of you reading this right now might have narrowly avoided countless fates where you didn't even survive. In some realities, maybe you're already technically dead, while here, your consciousness keeps flowing. This isn't just some late-night sci-fi theory. Serious scientists are exploring these questions because they challenge our most basic understanding of life after death. If every decision spawns infinite realities, then what does death even mean? Are we simply passengers moving between threads, never truly experiencing a final ending? And as we peel back this mind-bending idea, an even more radical hypothesis emerges. Let's push the envelope a little further. Imagine this. Every time you face a life-threatening moment in your car accident, a serious illness, a foul, you survive. But what if, in some realities, you didn't? That's where the concept of quantum immortality kicks in. The idea suggests that whenever you die in one version of reality, your consciousness simply shifts to another where you keep living. From your point of view, you never actually experience death. It's a mind-bending twist, isn't it? In this view, being dead is something that only happens in realities you're no longer conscious of. Your spirit continuously jumps to the version where you're still alive, creating an endless loop of existence. That might explain those times when people say, "I should have been dead after that accident, but somehow I wasn't." Maybe their consciousness simply moved to the timeline where survival was still possible. And this isn't just spiritual speculation. Once again, scientists are seriously debating these possibilities in the field of quantum physics. If this hypothesis holds true, then life after death isn't a mystical hope, it's a built-in feature of the very fabric of reality. But if our journey doesn't end with what we call death, then what role does the physical body even play in this grand equation? Well, that leads us straight into some truly revolutionary scientific theories. Let's dive even deeper. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, two highly respected scientists, proposed something truly groundbreaking. What if consciousness itself isn't just a byproduct of the brain, but a quantum phenomenon? According to their theory, tiny structures inside brain cells called microtubules may host quantum processes. In simple terms, your spirit might not be trapped in the physical world, but deeply connected to the fabric of the universe itself. If that's true, then even when the body shuts down, the quantum information, your consciousness, could continue to exist. It might drift into other dimensions or realities, allowing for what we traditionally call life after death. This offers a scientific pathway to explain how someone could continue their journey after becoming physically dead. The boundaries between science and spirituality start to blur in a way that makes you question everything you thought you knew. Imagine your spirit as a signal, like a Wi-Fi connection. The body is just the router. If the router breaks, does the signal itself vanish? No, it's still there, waiting to connect somewhere else. This is exactly how Penrose and Hameroff frame consciousness, not dependent on the physical machine, but part of a much larger, universal network. It's both unsettling and strangely comforting, isn't it? And if scientists are seriously considering that we might already be operating across multiple realities, shifting, connecting, and realigning even after we're declared dead, maybe ancient spiritual traditions weren't as naive as modern science once believed. In fact, their insights might have foreshadowed what cutting-edge physics is only now beginning to uncover. For centuries, various spiritual traditions have whispered what modern scientists are only now beginning to investigate. Ancient Hindu texts spoke of rebirth, Buddhists explored endless cycles of reincarnation, and shamans across cultures described journeys of the spirit between worlds. They all carried a core belief that what we call death is not the end but merely a transition to another form of life after death. Now, science is catching up. The more physicists study quantum mechanics, the more they realize that these ancient beliefs might have been describing a kind of multiverse all along. If infinite realities exist, then why wouldn't the spirit move between them after one version of the body has become dead? Suddenly, myths and sacred stories feel less like fantasy and more like early attempts to explain what we're just beginning to measure. Take reincarnation, for example. What if it's not just about returning as a newborn baby, but shifting into another version of yourself in a different reality? Perhaps that déjà vu you experience isn't just a mental glitch, it might be a faint echo from another life path, where your consciousness already walked those steps. The boundaries between the mystical and the scientific grow thinner with each discovery. And here's where things get even more provocative. If these ancient teachings were unknowingly describing quantum processes, then we may need to rethink not just death, but the entire nature of existence. What role does intention play in this grand design? Could your choices, emotions, or beliefs steer your spirit across these infinite paths? The next layer of this mystery pulls us right into that possibility. Near-death experiences have baffled scientists for decades. People clinically dead return with vivid stories floating above their bodies, traveling through tunnels of light, even meeting long-lost loved ones. If the brain had truly shut down, where were these visions coming from? Could it be that the spirit, freed from the body, continues its journey in a different plane of existence, offering a glimpse into what life after death might look like? Some researchers argue these experiences are nothing more than the brain's final fireworks before shutting off, but others are beginning to see them as evidence that consciousness can exist independently of the physical body. If your spirit can observe your lifeless form from above, then perhaps the dead aren't as disconnected from reality as we've always believed. Maybe they've simply shifted to a layer we can't yet perceive. And here's where personal responsibility enters the picture. If your consciousness truly influences which reality you land in, then every choice you make might carry cosmic weight. Every moment of anger, gratitude, or fear could steer your spirit into a slightly different version of existence. Imagine your life is a video game where every decision opens a new level, except you never see the levels you didn't choose. This flips everything we believe about fate. You're not just a passive player waiting for death to arrive. You might be actively shaping which thread of reality your spirit travels next. But if that's true, how do we explain those eerie moments when reality seems to glitch? What if those bizarre events aren't accidents at all, but glimpses of you slipping between different versions of existence? You've probably heard of the Mandela effect, the strange phenomenon where large groups of people remember the same thing. Completely wrong. Was it Berenstain Bears or Berenstain Bears? Did Nelson Mandela die in prison, or did he live decades longer? These collective memory gaps puzzle even seasoned scientists. But what if they aren't mistakes? What if they're signs that our consciousness or spirit is navigating between alternate realities? The same goes for déjà vu, that eerie feeling when you walk into a room, meet someone new, or have a conversation and feel like you've lived it before. Most people shrug it off as a brain glitch, but maybe it's not your mind playing tricks. It could be your spirit brushing up against a parallel version of you where those events already happened, almost like slipping between threads of existence without even realizing it. Think of it like tuning a radio. Sometimes you get a little interference from a neighboring station, just enough to hear a few notes from another song. Your consciousness, while fully rooted in one timeline, might briefly sense another version where your life played out slightly differently. And these errors become little reminders that perhaps we're never fully locked into one reality, even if our physical body thinks we are. And if that's true, then what we call life after death might just be a continuous jump between layers of existence, with the spirit constantly weaving through this vast multiverse. But what power does our awareness truly have in collapsing these possibilities into one lived experience? The next question takes us even closer to the core of how reality itself may be shaped. Here's where it gets truly mind-blowing. According to some cutting-edge scientists, consciousness might not just observe reality, it might actually create it. Every moment, your spirit is collapsing countless probabilities into one lived experience. Out of infinite possible outcomes, the version you're living right now exists because your consciousness chose it. Death, in this framework, is just one path among countless others that your spirit might never even register. Imagine standing in front of a massive tree with infinite branches. Each decision, each thought, each emotion nudges you toward one branch or another, but you never see the branches you didn't take. From your point of view, you're always alive, always moving forward. The versions where you're dead still exist somewhere, but your spirit simply doesn't inhabit them. It's as if you're inside a movie where every scene branches into thousands of new storylines, but you only experience one continuous plot. And yet, the director behind the camera, your consciousness, is choosing the next scene at every moment. That's why some people report miraculous survivals from accidents where, by all logic, they should be dead. Their spirit simply continued along the path where survival occurred. So if life after death is simply a matter of which version of reality your spirit navigates, then what does that say about free will? Do your daily choices hold more cosmic weight than you ever imagined? The next layer of this mystery reveals a sobering, yet empowering, truth about the ethical responsibility we carry with every thought and action. If every thought, action, and decision carves out a new version of reality, then your consciousness carries an enormous responsibility. You're not simply floating through existence. Your spirit is actively sculpting the multiverse with each choice you make. This isn't just poetic, it's a logical consequence of how reality might function at the quantum level. The lives you don't live still exist, but you shape the one you're experiencing. And here's the danger. Knowing this, some might think, well, if there are endless realities, who cares what I do? But that's missing the point entirely. Your actions today ripple not just through your own path, but through the infinite possibilities ahead. You're crafting the version of yourself you'll wake up as tomorrow. The spirit doesn't get a free pass. It's accountable at every fork in the road. Think of it like writing a book, where every sentence opens up endless chapters. Will you write a story full of meaning, growth, and connection, or one filled with regret? The ethical weight of this view is enormous. You may avoid being physically dead, but spiritual stagnation is another kind of slow death, a life after death, without true vitality. Choosing presence, empathy, and growth isn't just noble, it's essential. And as your consciousness continues to navigate these endless branches of existence, one final question remains. How would society transform if we all understood that death is not a final wall, but a doorway? What kind of world would we build if fear no longer dictated how we lived? The final layer of this journey might just reshape everything. Imagine a world where people no longer fear being dead. If society embraced the idea that death is simply another transition for the spirit, everything would shift. The obsession with clinging to material possessions, chasing shallow achievements, and fearing the unknown would lose its grip. People might finally start living fully, seeking meaning, building genuine relationships, and nurturing their consciousness with intention. When you strip away the paralyzing fear of death, life opens up like a vast landscape of endless possibilities. Suddenly, you're not afraid to take risks that align with your purpose, to love deeply, or to pursue your true calling. Because if your spirit continues beyond this version of reality, what matters most isn't how long you live, but how deeply you live. Scientists may call it quantum theory, but ancient wisdom has been nudging us toward this truth for centuries. And think about the ripple effect. Societies could evolve from self-centered competition to communities built on collaboration and empathy. If we recognized that our consciousness creates and navigates these realities, we'd be far more intentional about the worlds we're building, not just for ourselves but for others too. We'd treat every interaction as sacred, knowing that threads we weave shape not just one timeline but infinite futures. So the question lingers: if you truly believed your spirit is actively shaping reality, how would you start living today? Would you take that leap of faith? Would you finally silence the fear and embrace the infinite journey of your consciousness? Because once you start seeing existence this way, everything becomes far more fascinating, and we've barely scratched the surface. So now I leave you with one unsettling question. If your spirit is constantly navigating infinite realities, and what we call death is merely a shift, what kind of life are you actually choosing to live? Are you actively creating a reality filled with meaning, or passively sliding through timelines without ever waking up to your true power? Imagine the possibilities if you fully embraced this. How would your decisions change? Would you take more risks, love deeper, pursue your true purpose without hesitation? Because if your consciousness is crafting your reality moment by moment, then every single choice matters far more than you've ever been told. Now it's your turn. Do you believe we've been living a lie about death all along? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. And if this opened your mind even a little, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Because trust me, we're just getting started.